in Internet governance. I am Carol Roach, the MAG Chair for IGF 2024. So this, looking back and moving forward, is under the theme Improving Digital Cooperation for the Internet that we want. Over the past 20 years, the IGF has played a significant role in the Internet and the digital ecosystem. It has evolved to meet the exponential growth of the Internet and the digital technologies, leveraging a multi-stakeholder model to bring together experts, communities, and users to address innovations, opportunities, and risks. With this in mind, the session today will focus on the IGF's role in the Global Digital Compact, implementation in the context of the WSIS Plus 20 review, as well as enhancing the IGF presence in the WSIS architecture and IGF institutional improvements ahead of the WSIS Plus 20 review process. So joining me on stage and online, we have Tamia Sutu, who's the Global Digital Policy Lead for the International Chamber of Commerce. We have Valeria Bendecourt, Internet Governance Lead, Association for Progressive Communications, or APC. Christine Arreda, online, board member of the Strategic Advisory to the Executive President, National Telecom Regulatory Authority of Egypt. And we have Curtis Lindquist, President and CEO, Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN. And my co-moderator is Benga Sassan, Executive Director of Paradigm Initiative. Welcome, everybody. So we're going to jump straight into it, and my first question goes to Tamia. How did the IGF contribute to the 20-year implementation of the WSIS action lines, and what are the substantive contributions the IGF, mainly its reports, intersessional work, can bring to the GDC as we move into its implementation and look towards the WSIS Plus 20 review and beyond? It's a big question, but I know you can handle that.
Thank you very much, Carol, and good morning, everyone. It's nice to see many of you here still on the last day of the IGF and with us in this session, and thank you to everyone for inviting me and ICC to share a few words. For those of you who don't know us, the International Chamber of Commerce is a global business organization. We represent a network of companies of all sizes and sectors of over 45 million in number in more than 170 countries around the world. So we aim to bring their voice into their conversations here today. About the IGF, ICC was also very much involved in the WSIS process. We were the interlocutor for WSIS back in Geneva and Tunis phases 20 years ago almost. And since then, we have an initiative that's called Business Action to support the information society that looks at the outcomes of the WSIS process and tries to bring the business voices into this conversation. So it's not unusual that we are always at the IGF and we're trying to bring businesses into the IGF to support, of course, these meetings at the annual level, but also the work that happens intersessionally. So what has the IGF done in the past 20 years that is relevant to WSIS and the GDC? First of all, it has been instrumental in fostering inclusive multi-stakeholder dialogue. On internet governance, of course, bringing together governments, businesses, civil society, academia, and the technical community, but also on a number of issues that are related to the internet. I like to say the technologies that either enable or are enabled by the internet. So the IGF has had the conversations in this multi-stakeholder setting in all these areas. And it has established itself as the premier global platform for open and constructive discourse on these issues. So for me, that is one element, the multi-stakeholder conversation and convening power. Another one of the IGF's major contribution is that it really builds global awareness of the critical digital issues, whether that's we're talking about access to digital technologies or inclusion or cybersecurity or emerging technologies. It encourages dialogue, shared understanding, and collaboration, which I think is a great contribution to the IGF. Over the years, the IGF has developed, as you said, vibrant intersessional work and an ecosystem through initiatives like best practice forums, the dynamic coalitions, the policy networks that have allowed these stakeholders from all around the world to coalesce and collaborate on specific issues on a year-round basis. And they have produced a lot of interesting reports and outputs on issues like cybersecurity, meaningful connectivity, AI, internet fragmentation, and many others. So while these outputs, yes, they are not binding, they provide valuable insights and practical guidance sometimes for policymakers and practitioners. And that is one more element that I think that we need to highlight from the past 20 years contributions of the IGF. And then last but not least, it has fostered a network and the growth of the multi-stakeholder idea through the national and regional IGFs in local and regional communities. And this really helps localize the internet governance discussions that we have at this international level. The NRIs really bring diverse stakeholders into the conversation to ensure that the regional priorities and voices are fed into the global debates, while also driving grassroots engagement on the digital issues that are pressing for a particular time and place. So these developments altogether have been instrumental in identifying some actionable solutions and fostering alignment across sectors and regions, and therefore enabling a more cohesive approach to implementing the WSIS action lines, and I think should be leveraged to channel the voice of the multi-stakeholder community in the review process of the WSIS, that of course also very relevant for the GDC. As we consider the implementation of the Global Digital Compact, the IGF can really serve as a foundational resource, in my opinion, that capitalizes on this unique convening power that the IGF has to share insights and expertise that reflect the realities and aspirations of the multi-stakeholder community, and to exchange best practices and forge partnerships to foster and further the GDC implementation. It really is that unique forum that brings us all together, where we can discuss, okay, what have you done on GDC? What am I doing? How do we move that forward? And make sure that that voice of the community is really part of the discussions around how to implement the GDC as well. And last but not least, I think the IGF's convening power can also help maintain momentum for these, both the WSIS plus 20 review and the GDC. We tend to think of them as a moment in time, but I think the IGF has the power to carry that momentum further for the years to come, and offer space for dialogue and monitoring and accountability on what we've committed ourselves to, whether that's the WSIS action lines, whether that's the GDC, or perhaps bringing the two together. So I'll leave it at that and turn it back to you, Carol.
Thank you, Tamia. I agree with you that we have such a community here, and we've already been in the space of discussions, and adding another discussion with regards to the GDC is something we're able to handle. You're quite right. Thank you. So I'm now going to hand the same question over to Valeria. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carol. Good morning, everyone. Very happy to see you all here. And also thank you for the opportunity to share the perspective of the Association for Progressive Communications, a global network of civil society groups working with the internet and other information and communication technologies to improve people's lives. The Internet Governance Forum has been for years a platform for debate and for dialogue of public policy issues that cut across multiple action lines of the WSIS. It complements both the WSIS forum's role in monitoring progress regarding the WSIS action lines, and also the CSTD, which serves as a forum for intergovernmental discussions. The internet is at the heart of the WSIS vision of a people-centered, inclusive information society. Its development, its availability, how the internet is used, how affordable and meaningful accessing it is, what languages one can use or read on the internet, is potential for good, but also its potential for harm. All of these internet governance issues also relate to the WSIS action lines. And for the past 19 years, the IGF has given people from different parts of the world with different perspectives and from different sectors and groups the opportunity to share challenges and solutions. The IGF the Best Practice Forum on Gender and Access, for instance, became the first global multi-stakeholder space for exploring gender-based online violence. The recommendations that emerge from this Best Practice Forum continues to inform efforts to make the internet a space that is safe and is secure for women and gender minorities. Another example, the IGF Dynamic Coalition on Community Connectivity. It marked the first steps to recognition of the need to diversify solutions, models, markets, and partnerships for empowering the unconnected to connect themselves. It has been mentioned already by Timea, but the regional and national IGFs are spaces for different stakeholders and for civil society to sit alongside governments and have difficult conversations about media freedom, human rights, accountability, and digital justice. In the case of the LAC IGF, it has allowed us to build synergies with the ELAC process, the regional digital agenda that resulted from the WSIS. So by addressing emerging issues and the way in which they are addressed, all aspects of society permeated by digitalization have evolved. And obviously the Global Digital Compact updates the framework for shaping our digital future and proposes a set of shared principles and commitments for a more collaborative digital future. In that sense, it complements well the WSIS framework, and both should be integrated. The IGF is a central space to discuss ways to respond to gaps in the implementation in the WSIS goals and tackle new issues addressed by the GDC, and in that way to contribute to reduce the fragmentation that permeates the global governance ecosystem of digital technologies. As the IGF Vision Beyond 2025 document that the Internet Strategy Working Group has put together, as it states, there is no dichotomy between the Internet governance and digital governance. And the IGF, within its existing mandate, is a suitable platform for addressing the challenges and opportunities presented by the new and emerging digital technologies that shape our information society and the related digital policy processes, and at the same time also continue analyzing and proposing solutions for the never-ending goals of the WSIS. I would like to call on the MAC and the IGF community to implement the actions proposed by the IGF Strategy Working Group in order to operationalize the vision for a more impactful IGF towards a people-centered and planet-centric digital policy, and also for democratic, inclusive, accountable, and transparent governance of digital technologies. Last but not least, the IGF, we should recall, it also facilitated the IANA transition, and also the Net Mundial process emerged from the IGF. So there is a lot to build on the IGF, and the IGF is still playing a critical role to shape the digital future that will serve people's lives in the best possible way.
Thank you, Valeria. I do believe, and agree with you, that the IGF is well positioned to look at the opportunities and the innovations, as well as the threats and the risks. And we're good at finding gaps and addressing them. So thank you very much. We are poised and ready to be impactful for the GDC as well as our communities. So we're now going to move, end this session with the audience. We want to make it very interactive. I just want to remind the audience that You have a 2-minute limit for your intervention. Please, this is not the time for advertising. Let's just try to stick with the topics. I'm going to ask Jorge Cancino from Ofcom to start us off with his thoughts. Jorge, you want to take the mic? Oh, you're on this side. Welcome.
So, hello, do you hear me okay? Good. I don't see you very well, but I hope you hear me. I'm hearing myself, so it must be working. So thanks for giving me this opportunity. I'm Jorge Cancio from the Swiss government. I have to confess, I was in Tunis almost 20 years ago when we agreed on the WSIS second phase, the Tunis Agenda for the Information Society. So I was part of that process. And if we look back, it's not only 20-year-old documents that we agreed on a vision of a people-centered, development-focused, human-based, human rights-based information society. What is a digital society? And we also agreed on means to make that happen with the so-called action lines, where the different agencies from the UN and also many other stakeholders would work towards that vision. We also agreed on some governance structures. The WSIS action lines would be discussed every year in what became the WSIS Forum. Member states would look into the progress in the Commission for Science and Technology for Development, and we would have the most creative kid on the block, the IGF, to look into emerging topics and have digital governance discussions. So as everything that becomes reality, it hasn't been perfect. Many things have been imperfect, but we have achieved a lot. Many hundreds or thousands of millions of dollars have been spent in implementing those action lines. Many thousands of hours have been spent in discussing, in exchanging, in networking. So there's something that became reality from the ideas that were discussed in 2003 and 2005. Now we have the challenge of a newer kid on the block, the Global Digital Compact, which brings some important impulses on data governance, AI governance, on human rights online, on also what connectivity means today. And we have to look how do we implement that, those new goals. And we think that if we look at the wider WSIS family, so the architecture I mentioned before, where the IGF is a part of it, we have good means to do that, but we need a serious discussion amongst all of ourselves, being able to find a positive sum game in these discussions during the so-called WSIS Plus 20 review to see how this architecture, including the IGF, can deliver on a more fairer digital present and future that addresses the needs of everybody, be it on the global north or the global south. So I think we have a good basis. We have to try to strive for consensus, for common grounds, not being too much attached to flags or to words with many connotations, but really work towards an inclusive, multi-stakeholder collaboration amongst everyone. So I hope this discussion helps in this, as 7 years ago, the IGF helped in bringing about the beginning of the Global Digital Compact process by recommending that the Secretary General should start discussion at the highest international level on the future of digital cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. The floor is open for questions. You could just make your way down. Introduce yourself, please. Go ahead.
I'm Kim from the Telecommunication Regulator Cambodia. Just a quick question, connect from the previous panel to this panel. My question to all the panelists is, how can we connect from the internet fragmentation to the internet governance? That's my short question. Thank you.
Any of the panelists want to take that?
Are there no more questions?
Okay. Sorry, can you repeat the question again, please? Okay. Just give us a brief introduction of what the previous panel was, so we can make the connection.
Okay. In the previous panels, we heard a lot about the internet fragmentation, the cause and effects, and we did not really hear much about how to fix it. But so in this panel is about the internet governance. So what I want to hear is, how can the panel and this discussion, how can the panelists in this discussion connect from the internet fragmentation to the internet governance? So it seems like, how can we fix the internet fragmentation by using the internet governance? That's how I can emphasize to my question. I hope that all panelists clear with what I want to ask. Is it okay with that or not really?
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, the question is clear.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for repeating that and connecting us to the previous panel. And this is what the IGF should be about, by the way, having conversations across panels as well, not just in sessions that we are sitting in. So internet fragmentation, the way I see it, how it connects to internet governance discussions here, and generally policy discussions on digital issues, should be the way through which we actually make sure that we collaborate to avoid fragmented internet. We're all here talking about an open, interconnected, interoperable, resilient internet. If we approach these issues, the issues of the internet or the issues on the internet in silos, or we try to fix them in our own bubbles, in our national context or regional context or in our own stakeholder groups, we are already creating fragmentation. The internet is something that transcends borders, and that it's its beauty and it's, I think, the greatest challenge. We cannot address what we want the internet to look like or how the internet should work without bringing the same idea of working like the internet in the governance conversations. My friend Bertrand says that, it was a quote from Kofi Annan, we need to be as innovative as the people who invented the internet if we want to have the conversations about the internet. So we need to be able, in the internet governance conversation, the digital policy conversations, to bring ideas, laws, regulations, whatever might be necessary, that connect rather than break up the various parts that we want to fix.
Should I go? Yes, in addition, I think from the governance point of view, it is very important to avoid the proliferation of processes and to facilitate the integration of processes so they can work together in a synergetic way, cross-fertilizing not only policy dialogue, but also policy development towards common ends. I think the challenges that we have to face really demand all those stakeholders to work around common goals, and the proliferation of processes, siloing of issues does not contribute to precisely providing all the necessary solutions and responses that have to be consistent in terms of the different levels that we have to address. In that sense, I think the IGF is a very unique space to precisely consolidate the conversation, the analysis, to bring together and to also identify specific key messages and recommendations that could go to the different decision-making spaces, including at national level. So in that sense, I think fragmentation could be avoided also by integrating the different processes that are relevant for the governance and the policies of the internet and digital technologies.
Yes, I think also it's one of the reasons why the IGF found it necessary to add the parliamentary and the judiciary track so that we can take from discussion into policy, bringing the policy makers, the decision makers into the conversation so that it's just not talk, that we could move it forward in this collaborative space. Thank you. Vint? Oh yes, Vint, you're online. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Carol. So far, this discussion has been extremely helpful. I just wanted to make a couple of observations that drive my conclusions. The first thing is that we've all seen the internet evolve over time. And today it does things that we weren't doing 30 years ago or 20 years ago. The important point is that the IGF needs to evolve as well, and it needs a permanent presence because the internet is not a static thing. IGF has to adapt to the internet's evolution, and so we need an IGF there at all times. It should become a permanent part of the DESA operation. It should have mainline funding at roughly $3 million a year. And we need to activate our ability to assess the state of the internet collectively. There are examples of metrics of the condition of the internet. UNESCO has its internet universality indicators, for example. We might want to work together to assemble a picture of the internet on an annual basis in order to present policymakers with a sense for where the internet is going and where there is need for additional governance activities. I would love to see us harness even more the NRIs and the annual IGF meetings and the intersessional activity in order to assess the implementation of the GDC. So we have a big opportunity, I think, as IGF to contribute to the internet's evolution and continued utility. And as many of the speakers have pointed out, the internet's fragmentation is in some ways the antithesis of its original design, which was to connect everything together. And so we have to be continually concerned about that fragmentation and abuse of the internet. We need policies and implementations that will create a safer environment and one which is more productive for everyone. So thanks so much for letting me intervene, Carol, and I'm eager to hear what others have to say.
Thank you. Any more questions? No? Pardon? Tamia? Many, sorry. Can we have the podium mic, please? Okay. You want to try this side, Manny? Or?
Is this working?
Oh,
Sorry, just to note that we have a raised hand from the audience.
Okay.
It's Muriel Alapini. If we can please give the colleague speaking rights and a camera so that they can come in and share their contribution. And just to remind, this is an open dialogue, so please feel free to come in with your thoughts in the conversations. Thank you.
Somebody online needs a mic open.
Bonjour. Hello, everybody. My name is Muriel Alapini, and I'm from Benin. Please allow me to speak French because I knew I will be a little emotional during my speech. So I will go with my native language. Thank you. Bonjour tout le monde.
Good morning, everyone. This is Muriel Ami from Benin. I am intervening as a user of Internet. And I would like to thank each and every person present here, physically and remotely, allowing us actually to have Internet and to do whatever we are doing today. In Africa, the Internet is improving. And today, thanks to the IGF, you have no idea how many people are actually learning every day to use Internet. This is allowing them to change their lives and to have a new perspective on the world. The number of people who are participating in associations related to governance, Internet governance, etc., is huge. So we reach a point today, to a culminated point where I would like to ask you, everyone, decision makers and representatives from different stakeholders in IGF, to really look at the human side, the human beings who through Internet are only thinking about the role of associations. What are these associations doing? What is the IGF doing? The government in Africa is interested in Internet. This was not the case years ago. You have students, you have children, and today everyone is involved in this collaborative work. Therefore, I would like to call upon you, beside discussions and diplomacy and words, please take into consideration that the humanity today depends on this actually tool and on the work that was done by the associations in the field that are bringing a new layer to the population, and this new layer of population is interested in these issues, and the fragmentation and division should not be existent. Despite all of this, actually, we have people who are interested in Internet and all relevant issues. Of course, nothing is perfect, and we need action. We need tangible actions to continue to work with you, and we hope to improve, actually, and we hope that you will be proud of us, because there will be new people contributing in your work. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Tamia or Valeria, you'd want to add to the comment? No? Yes, thank you very much for your observations. And the national and regional IGFs are doing tremendous work on the ground, and that is why we can see a lot of movement and improvements, as well as the DCs, the dynamic coalitions. We have a question on the floor.
السلام عليكم. بتكلم بالعربي.
I'm gonna speak in Arabic. Engineer Haifa Shaukat, the ambassador of goodwill and peace in Yemen. We are suffering from the worst humanitarian crisis, and the internet blocked the rule of women. So what is the right procedures that we can use the internet to free and set free the detained women, and why not the international organization enhance the internet connectivity in Yemen, which suffer from the lack of information and the internet governance, and how can we protect our data and our service on the internet space?
Very good question there. Valeria or Tamia? Vint, any input?
I think the question, if I've understood the question correctly, how do we deal with the inequities that appear, especially in the internet environment for various groups, women, for example, children and others. As you all know, our purpose in the internet is to be an inclusive and supporting environment where everyone has useful access. The only thing that we can do is, as we see these inequities happening, is to make recommendations for more inclusive capacity, more inclusive practices. Perhaps the best way we can do that is to give examples where these problems have been addressed successfully, and to explain what went into those solutions. Some of these problems are not technical. They're social, they're economic, they're cultural. And this is where we have to understand that not all of the solutions are going to admit of a technical response, which makes it all the more harder to address. But recognizing that these solutions require a variety of different responses across social, technical, and economic spheres, I think is an important first step.
Thanks, Vint. A question from the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Martina Legal-Malakova. I'm from Slovakia. I'm a MAG member and I represent private sector. We always see the same countries active in also digital or green transition. My question is, what is the action plan that also another countries will be active in IGF and also in implementation GDC that we will achieve our digital future human and planet centric? Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Martina, can we have the question again? Sorry.
Sorry. So my question is, what is our action plan that also another countries will be active in IGF much more, and also we will ensure that they will be active in implementation GDC, that we will reach our human and planet-centric digital future?
Just a brief response to that. As I was saying, I think the vision that the IGF is crafting for the future of the IGF also includes a set of suggested actions for the IGF community to be able to precisely shed some light in relation to how to refresh the role of the different stakeholders towards that precisely that type of digital future. So I think I could call on also again to the IGF community and the MAC to put in action some of those recommendations that I think will put us in the right track towards integrating processes and tackling the challenges that we have.
Tamia?
And I think also we need to work closer with the community that the IGF has built through the national and regional networks, but also just to all of us individuals, try and connect the conversations that we have here at the IGF on the international level to the realities that matter to those countries and the stakeholders in those countries. So it's not just becomes an ivory tower of IGF conversations, but that they actually are connected to the realities. Not everything will be relevant or relevant in the same way to everybody, but I think we need to do a better job in translating what our work here means to those who are working on the ground. We cannot see the podium from up the stage here from the right, but I understand there's people on the right side. So if I can maybe ask people, I don't know, if you use the left side, I know it's a bit of a trek, but the moderator can see you. Otherwise, we can't see you because of this podium right on the side of the stage. So I'm sorry, I just realized that somebody was there. So Bruna and Bertrand are on that side, but yeah, maybe use the left side, please, because then we can see you. I'm sorry.
I just want to interject. I think from the previous speaker and Martina, I think what they're asking us is to improve our outreach, and as Tamia say, to come up with an action plan to make sure that the outcomes that we have here get some kind of traction within the countries that need it. So I think outreach, a better outreach program is required. I don't know who got to the stage first. Okay, everybody's moved to this side. So go ahead, speaker on the floor. Go ahead on the floor. Mic on the floor, please. It's on. It's on.
Okay. Thank you very much, the chair, for giving me the floor. My name is Mary Uduma. I'm from Nigeria. I coordinate the West Africa Internet Governance Forum. I'm part of the Africa Internet Governance Forum, and I have been part of the WICIS from 2005 in Tunis. The IGF has progressed. We have seen participants from government and private sector, and now we are including the parliamentarians and the judiciary. My question is, when and where will the multi-stakeholder process and the multilateral process have a handshake? Will it be the implementation of the GDC? We need that handshake. We need it to be smooth enough for us to speak from the same angle and read from the same page. Vince, you can answer this question. Thank you.
I'm sorry that I was distracted taking notes, and I'm not sure that I have the, if I was being asked to answer the question, I think I need a little summary of what the question was.
Okay, sure. Can I say it again?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm asking, when and where will the multi-stakeholder process, which the IGF is, and the multilateral process, which the government, okay, where and when will it shake hand? Will have a handshake? When will it smoothing out?
Yeah.
And is the GDC implementation, will it help to do this? That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, that's a wonderful formulation. Thank you for the summary and for the question. You know, I think part of the answer is right here. This is where the multilateral and the multi-stakeholder process should come together. Remember, multi-stakeholder includes government. And as Carol has pointed out, we've created tracks that include jurists and legislators and regulators to participate in the conversations. And I think you'll also notice that some of the other parts of the internet infrastructure, think about ICANN and its governmental advisory committee, we have places where these kinds of connections can be made. Even in the technical community, the Internet Engineering Task Force has government representatives showing up to consider technical matters. So your point, which I'd like to emphasize, is that we should be looking for places where the governments and the rest of the multiple stakeholders can work together. And IGF is certainly one of them, which is why I think this should become a permanent part of the UN landscape.
Thank you, Vint. I'd also like to point out that the IGF works closely with the Interparliamentary Group, and so we are handshaking in that way as well. From the floor, question? Question on the floor, mic, please.
Oh, now it's working. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. No, I just wanted to bring us back to the previous session because during the Policy Network for Internet Fragmentation session, we discussed specifically Article 29C from the GDC and asked everyone really a question as to how other stakeholder groups besides governments would think we could act and work together in order to implement, and not just implement, but also analyze and maybe even establish KPIs for analyzing the implementation of the GDC. And I think, to be honest, this is the main question in the room, right? The Pact for the Future and the Global Digital Compact were merely member states related processes, right? And we still have a lot of questions in the open as to how the GDC communicates with the WSIS plus 20 process, what's the role of the IGF, and how can we help steer this process. And maybe looking into next year, it would be really important for us to come to Norway or come to the Norway preparation, living here as well with a very clear picture as to how the IGF should help in these discussions and perhaps develop our own sort of KPIs together with the São Paulo multi-stakeholder guidelines to analyze how both processes will go and how can we improve this space as well. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Very good input there. Anybody online? I see Nigel Hickson. So we'll take one from on the online. Go ahead, Nigel.
Yes, and good morning. I hope you can hear me.
Clearly.
Thank you. I wish I was there with you. I'm Nigel Hickson. I work for the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology on internet governance issues, and I think this has been a really inspiring discussion. And I think that the questions we had earlier on what the IGF can do for marginalised constituencies and marginalised people is just so important, because if the Internet Governance Forum and other bodies cannot work to, if you like, improve processes and to capacity build in different countries, then I really do think we've lost an opportunity. And I think my good friend Mary from Nigeria, put a finger on it earlier, in that we have to, if you like, work together as governments in these processes. Often the multi-stakeholder and multilateral words are conflated, and what really matters is not the terminology, it's the ability of people to work together and to cooperate and to coordinate. And in that spirit, just two remarks on what the IGF can perhaps do better. I think what it can do better is not just, if you like, having topics to discuss, which is important, of course. It's important that we discuss AI, it's important that we discuss new and emerging technologies, but it's also critical that we help communities in their capacity building. And there I think the IGF could do a lot more. We could respond to the comments and the needs and the messages we get through the NRI network, and we could respond at the IGFs to a certain amount of capacity building, case studies where people have in other countries solved problems that countries still have with connection, with competition, in competition policy, and many other issues where we could perhaps do more to enable people to get online in an affordable way. So I do think there's more we can do, and we look forward, of course, to the mandate being renewed of the IGF, which will give it new spirit, which will give it new dynamic, to work on these critical issues. So thanks for this panel. It was really great. Carol, you're an inspiration, as always.
Thank you very much, Nigel. We'll just take one more question in this segment. And, oh, sorry, I want to make it equal. So we'll do Nima and then one more from the floor. Naima? Oh, sorry, I think I pronounced your name wrong. Yes, I can't see that well from this side. Nema, go ahead. Remember, 2 minutes, please. Nema or Nana?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Nana, go ahead.
Thank you very much. This has been a very interesting one. I had to wake up early to follow. Following up from Vince's point, that internet fragmentation is not just technical, and Mary's point on shaking hands, I'd like to bring, going forward, because that's why we're here on this session, the importance of internet governance schools. The IG schools are very critical in building capacity on one end, but also inducting people into the multi-stakeholder model of governance, not just on internet governance. And that's why I'm very happy that we have the judiciary joining us after the parliamentarians. I believe that for those of us who are faculty, we have seen that those stakeholders, individuals from whatever stakeholder group they've come from, who've gone through the internet governance schools, are more holistic in their approach. We've been in this for, I think the IG schools have been around for 12, 15 years, and I believe that there is a generation from the internet governance schools, from the Diplo graduates who are now the decision makers. And I'd like to put it on our table that as we renew the mandate, and by the way, I applaud the support of the UK government to have this as a permanent mandate. I believe that while we either renew or make it permanent, that we pay close attention to the schools, because this is where the national and regional initiatives actually come together. The schools are born by NRIs. The schools help induct people into the multi-stakeholder framework. The schools help us to raise holistic stakeholders into this, and they are more engaged because they're coming through the right way. So I just want to lay this on our tables, pay homage to all of those who've been from the WSIS era, but encourage the newer generation like Muriel and the younger ones who come after us. So there is the Vincent generation, there is the Nena generation, there is the Muriel generation. And I believe that as we work together to build more, the schools are critical. And like Mandela says, education is still the strongest weapon we have for development. And it implies in the IG section that educating IG schools may be our greatest weapon to ensuring multi-stakeholder and a united global digital community. My name is Nena. I come from the internet, and it's been an honor following every step of the way from here in Abidjan. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Nena. We'll have one last question from the floor. We do have another segment to get into, another exciting one. So, last question from the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for making this a real interactive session, and apologies for my martini voice, which is a strange thing to have in Saudi Arabia. My name is Bertrand Lachapelle. I'm the Executive Director of the Internet and Jurisdiction Policy Network. Like Jorge, I was in the WSIS when people who were extremely innovative, including Nitin Desai, and Marcus Kummer, created the innovation that is the IGF on which we continue to run. The IGF has developed, added innovations as well, and one of the most important is the creation of the national and regional IGFs, which came up, bottom up, the way they should be. The key problem we have today is that the IGF is caught in a catch-22 situation. it doesn't have the resources to fulfill all its potential, and it cannot get the resources unless it charts a vision of what it wants to achieve and what is the potential it wants to accomplish. We have the WSIS plus 20 review process. And what I'm going to say is not the only thing that we should discuss at the WSIS plus 20 review. There are many other topics, and Jorge mentioned them among the others. But there's one thing that we should definitely put on the agenda as quickly as possible, is beyond the prolongation or the permanent nature of the mandate or the existence of the IGF. We need to seriously discuss the revision of its mandate and the improvement of its institutional structure. I do not know how to do it. I may have ideas, others may have ideas. We will have to discuss this during that period. But the suggestion I'm making is that we ask and we collectively launch a consultation to all the national and regional IGFs in the perspective of the IGF in Norway in June next year and beyond, to ask at least to all of them this question, maybe others, but this question: how do you see the improvements, the new mandate for the IGF, how to improve its institutional structure, and most importantly, how should we discuss this? Should we have a new WIGIG? Should we have another group? Should we have something more than all the reviews that have already been made? But this question of the new mandate is more important than just the question of reconduction. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a very good opportunity to invite persons to go onto the IGF website and to review the vision document that the Working Group on Strategy produced and the MAG has given a nod to, and it gives an outline to much of what was said just now with regards to a way forward. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Benga. It's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Timia. Thank you, Valeria. I think that was a good one. Now we, of course, I will say thank you to Christine. Christine is with us online. Thank you for being patient. But the first conversation then feeds into the second. And thanks, Curtis, for being patient. Now we will move to have a conversation on two specific areas. One is, how do we enhance the IGF within the WSIS architecture? And the other, which a few people had actually, hinted on as we were getting comments and questions, is on the institutional improvement of the IGF. We're talking about a renewal of the mandate, making it permanent, but what will that look like institutionally? And so I have two questions for both Christine and Curtis. And these two questions, you could decide to answer just one, or take one of the questions, or both. And the first is, how does the IGF currently fit into the structure of implementing the WSIS outcomes? And what role should the IGF play as we approach WSIS plus 20 review and beyond? That's the first question. And the second is, taking into account all the contributions of the IGF over the last 19 years from all stakeholders, and the role of the IGF within the UN ecosystem, what do you consider the key priorities that we should focus on strengthening the IGF in terms of institutional and other areas? I guess we can start with Christine, whose mic is already ready to go.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Maybe I should start my intervention by congratulating the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for such a successful and great IGF. Even if I'm participating online, it's obvious and clear, and I'm really proud that the IGF is again in the Arab region. Also, let me say that I very much appreciate the opportunity to join this session, and I really thank the MAG for organizing this timely discussion on the future of the IGF and how to continue to empower its role in the digital governance space. I think I need to begin, like all the other people who talked in the session before me, to acknowledge the long-standing contribution the IGF has had to the internet governance space. It has evolved into this unique platform that we all cherish because it is providing open dialogue for everyone on equal footing. But not only that, it's also this space where emerging policy challenges have arisen in a bottom-up manner and are being analyzed, discussed in a multi-stakeholder setup, and where in-depth policy options are developed and put forward to the wider community. I think we all appreciate that very much, and I've been long enough in there to see that as well. So it's the time now to look at the future and address the gaps in order to advance the IGF's mandate within the upcoming WSIS Plus 20 review. And I really like the interventions that were made by all the different participants from the floor, how we have to look at that. I particularly like Bertrand's intervention that we really should look at the how, not just at the renewal, but at what should we be doing to continue to build on this unique role. So I would like in my intervention to focus on three main points, which I believe, in my view, are critical to the empowerment of the IGF moving forward, and they are, in my view, all equally important, no particular order. So number one, and this was mentioned also by others, is the extended network of national, regional, and youth IGFs. I think this grassroots network of NRIs, which has grown organically over the years, reflects the specific divergence of the IGF community. NRIs reach to their communities, to their multi-stakeholder communities, and they're so well positioned to reach out to policy-making bodies, and I say not only policymakers, but also policy-making bodies within their respective territories and regions. And therefore, I think they can they are really well aligned with the WSIS. They have put the IGF well aligned with the WSIS vision to be people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented, and they provide a source of innovation. We've seen so many different modalities, emerging policy topics, and different output shapes come out innovatively from NRIs and being injected into the global IGF. So I think we would be losing a lot if we do not leverage the NRI's extended network ahead of the WSIS Plus 20 review to shape up the renewed mandate of the IGF. I think this is where we should look, this is where we should have the discussions, and then we should have a coordinated work that would come through the NRIs to identify the gaps and put in directions for evolution and development, possibly at the upcoming IGF in Norway. The second point I want to tackle is the importance of creating linkages and building channels beyond the IGF community. The IGF has 20 years of policy dialogue wisdom, and it is a cornerstone of the digital governance landscape, with no doubt. But it is also one component of the bigger WSIS family. Jorge talked about that. It has its unique role, which complements the action line facilitators, the program's monitoring forums, or even intergovernmental discussion venues. But with that holistic view in mind, I think we should really look at that there is no dichotomy between internet governance and digital governance. The mandate of the IGF has been so broad that it has really put forward all the rapidly evolving challenges of digital policies. This is clearly visible in the agenda over the past years, in its intersessional work, and also in the wealth of output it produces. I think what we're missing, or what we need to do more, and this has been said, is how to communicate this more effectively and efficiently beyond the IGF's own community. And in order to do that, linkages need to be made, more institutional coordination needs to be made, and to do that, we need adequate and efficient resourcing and institutionalization of the IGF, which is also imperative if the IGF would play the role we wanted to play in the implementation and the follow-up of the GTC. My third and last point is about the role of the IGF in inspiring multilateral processes and helping them evolve in the spirit of multi-stakeholder principles. The Net Mondial Plus 10 multi-stakeholder statement talks about the importance of including stakeholder voices in multilateral and decision-making processes. And that is important. Why? Because without that, we wouldn't have effective solutions to challenges that we face, and solutions would be implementable without that. So the IGF has the beauty of both worlds. It is the innovative kid on the block, the innovative multi-stakeholder process within the multilateral UN system, and so best fitted to address the gap between discussion and action, between dialogue and recommendations. Therefore, I think the IGF should dedicate a track not only at the global, not only at the annual event, but also intersessionally, also within NRIs, to pull, analyze, and help evolve the different flavors of multi-stakeholder approaches that there are out there, and then echo them to inspire multilateral processes. And obviously, the Sao Paulo multi-stakeholder guidelines would serve well in that respect. To that end, I think we should formalize the IGF evolution in order to give room for ongoing and continuous innovation and experimentation within the IGF framework. We should be bold enough to harness its potential to deliver actionable and tangible outcomes, such as evidence-based policy recommendations or policy test beds, for example. And finally, I think we should be really mindful of the growing, increasingly fragmented digital governance ecosystem and make sure the IGF plays the role we want it to play in the coordination of this space by providing cohesion and inclusive and diverse participation of stakeholders, especially from developing countries and the Global South. With that, I go back to you, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Christian. Curtis, I'll come to you now.
Thank you. I'd also like to start by thanking the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for a very successful hosted IGF. You asked the question, what does the IGF fit into the current institutional structure that was of the WSIS outcomes? And the IGF is really the central to the WSIS framework and to the WSIS internet governance. WSIS recognized that the multi-stakeholder collaborative effort and collaboration is a requirement or necessity for successfully implementing the goals from the WSIS process. And in that spirit, the UN and the UN Secretary General established the IGF as the platform to facilitate the interrelated public policy discussions. And in this space that the multi-stakeholder approach, which is very core to the WSIS outcomes, actually is brought to life and becomes concrete, right? And for the last 19 years, the IGF has provided this platform for governments, civil society, business, academia, and the technical community to engage with each other in these open discussions that we're having here and have had for the last 19 years, and on the internet governance and the future of the internet. And the real value in this is this fostering this dialogue and building consensus on these topics that then shapes the narratives and inform policy making at national and international levels as we go forward. And as we come to the WSIS Plus 20, and I think IGF is going to have, in order to remain relevant, I mean, the world around us is changing as well. It's not a static world. We're not in the same world as we were 19 years ago. And IGF really need to change to facilitate the new discussions and amplify the outputs so that insights are really shared to the decision makers, and there's a real outcome that the discussions here is taken away. IGF should continue to strengthen partnerships with other UN agencies and topical and specialist agencies and their processes. And there is really a need for the coordinated global governance more than ever before. As again, the world has evolved on from the 19 years ago when we came together in Tunis. And the IGF really already was recognized in the GDC as the primary multi-stakeholder platform for discussion of internet governance issues. And we really should make sure that we don't undermine that role and the importance that as expressed in the GDC, right? Your second question was about the substantive contribution by the IGF in 19 years, right? And I think there's three key areas to focus on. is to strengthen the outputs. The IGF has been exceptionally effective in generating rich and meaningful discussions on a wide range of topics relating to internet governance. But we need those discussions to translate into tangible and actionable outcomes that, as I said, we can take with us and bring back into policy setting discussions. And this should also help to bring impact in bridging the digital divide, as we heard in some of the questions in the previous session, and make sure it helps also to connecting the unconnected people. The second key area is to enhance inclusivity. That was also a topic of the previous session, or the previous part. And really need to bring in more voices, especially from the global south, into the discussions. The youth and marginalized communities. I mean, that was, I think, 2 or 3 of the questions or points made earlier. Completely agree with that. There is a diversity of perspectives here that makes the IGF quite unique. Again, is one of the outcomes of the multi-stakeholder process, right? That's why we're here. And it's really important that those unique perspectives are shared with these underrepresented regions, and they are heard in this and brought into these discussions. So make sure we really have the broad stakeholder base that we can have in the multi-stakeholder process. And I think it's also important to say that representation matters, because the governance framework we have and that we're striving to really must reflect realities and needs of all the internet users all around the world in order to make this also have confidence in the process. And the last area is to adapt to new challenges. IGF has evolved over the years. It's not the same IGF as 18 years ago. So there has been an evolution. There are new challenges, new topics, and this has really been the platform for this multi-stakeholder process and participation to discuss around these emerging technologies and emerging challenges and policy challenges. We need to ensure that we continue to bring that in, right, and to adopt to that. And if we don't address these priorities, I think the IGF has a risk of losing a bit of maybe credibility, but also relevance, right? There is a risk that's undermined. And last, of course, there is also geopolitical issues that could deepen the global divides, and we had to be very careful to also address that and provide a platform for that to ensure that we have, as Vin talked about, the continued unified and open internet that's globally reachable. That's a very important part, as we heard in the previous session as well.
Thank you, Curtis. And the interesting thing is you've both emphasized the role of the multi-stakeholder nature of the IGF and the lessons we've learned and how that helps with a lot of diversity. We will come to the room now. This room is full of experts, and I'm sure that we will benefit from the contributions and conversation. I will invite, to get us started on this, I'm sure we have Juan in the room to get us started on these twin questions. First of all, what is the role of the IGF within the WSIS framework? And secondly, how do we work on improving this in terms of improving the institutionalization of the IGF as we go into the next phase of the work?
Good morning. I've been asked to motivate the audience for this second round of interactions and questions and ideas. But in order to motivate the audience, I need to know the audience. I will introduce myself, and if you allow me, I will ask just a couple of questions to try to feel the audience. My name is Juan Fernandez. I'm from the Ministry of Communications of Cuba. That means that I represent government. And here there are different stakeholders. So my first question, I rather, with that light in my face, I don't see, I will move over there. Well, maybe I will take the microphone so I can move freely. I will ask, can you please raise your hand, those in the audience that represent government stakeholders? As usual, a minority here. And please, can you raise your hand, the members that represent civil society? More or less the same. And private sector companies. Well, and the fourth is the technical community. More or less the same. It's more or less an equal distribution. So thank you very much. And my second question, for whom of you this is the first IGF? Who repeats, who is the second? And more than two? No, the majority. So we have a very faithful community, Carol, that keeps them coming. And so to give pass the floor to you to ask the questions, I just want to elaborate on that. In my view, you know, as I said, I was government. I was in Tunis when the IGF was agreed, you know, the proposal to have an IGF. And I was going to be very honest to you. In that moment, I really did not understand why we needed a new fora that, you know, we have a very tight schedule all the year. So I really was a little bit skeptical about the IGF. But you know what? After the years has passed and the IGF has evolved to what is now, that is not only a yearly meeting, but we have all these national and regionals IGF. We have a lot of intersessional things that are going on, dynamic coalitions, best practice forum that are going and working all the year around, and voluntarily by people that are really interested in this thing. So it really, you know, I fell in love with the IGF, and that's why I'm here now. So I think that the IGF has this unique characteristic that among all the fora in the UN system and maybe beyond, that the program and the issues discussed are proposed by you, by the community that comes to the IGF. The topics of the workshops, even the main things in every year is selected by consultation from a bottom-up consultation. So I think this is the beauty of the IGF. And now that we have reached the 20th anniversary next year, and there's a big question to the international community whether the IGF should continue or not, I would like to ask you a very concrete question. What would you say to the officials that are considering whether to recommend if the IGF should continue or not? What would you say to them? And with that, I open the floor to answer this one question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think that was a good opener for this second segment of questions. And I'm sure you give some work to the cameraman there. All right, I see we have a queue already. Please be reminded, we've got 2 minutes for each speaker, preferably answering the question of how do we institutionalize the IGF within the framework of WSIS Plus 20, and we'll focus on this second segment. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Manal Abdessamad from Lebanon. I'm public policy advisor based here in Riyadh. This is my first IGF. I have two viewpoints that focus on two key ideas. First of all, I believe that IGF should focus on balancing innovation with inclusivity, with privacy, with equitable access to all, especially and particularly for the underserved communities and the vulnerable people. And secondly, the major question and the major viewpoint is IGF after 19 years, why it isn't generating outcomes and recommendations. We know very well that having this open-ended, this continuous dialogue without tangible recommendations can lead to nothing and can risk impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's have if there's anyone to my right, I can't see you. Okay, there's no one. Okay, so thank you so much. Everyone is using the left. Please go ahead. The next comment.
My name is Khalid Fattal. Khalid, first of all, hello, Vint. I'm sure we're keeping you up late.
This is Khaled speaking, and hello, Christine. These are colleagues from the days when I refer to the days of when dinosaurs roamed before the IGF. So I can't remember, I don't know who the person who was speaking earlier also, I was also there when IGF was created. One of the things I want to point out, and taking away the question of what do we do next, IGF is, by next IGF, we no longer are a teenager. So we won't have the excuse of still experimenting. With the advent of technology, the advent of the ability of AI to crack so much of the, democratize the risks through cyber, through the internet, to society all over the world, it is imperative, and I think I will draw on the question from the last intervention. We must find a way, and I've been saying this for many years, Vint, if you recall, we must find a way of making conclusions so that we serve society. Both of us, you and I, we have had this journey for a long time to try and make the internet a better place, not the OK Corral that it is today. So I think we need to really get out of our comfort zone. Without getting out of comfort zone, we will continue, unfortunately, to remain a talking shop, and that in itself isn't sufficient to come up with answers. Because today, just by doing this and the leveraging of AI, a 15-year-old could shut down a city and a country. And I'm speaking now as an expert in the space of cyber. So I think we need to get out of comfort zone and find a way forward, and perhaps be more creative in what we need to do moving forward. Otherwise, as where's the ICANN CEO? He made a comment earlier on in his presentation, was very, very vital. We risk losing value and losing our raison d'etre. My 2 cents. And I want to see this succeed, because this is also my baby, just like it's yours, Vint.
Thank you. So I'll go online. I see 2 hands. I see Nena from the internet and Vint. So I'll take Nena, and then we'll have Vint, and then I'll come back offline or on site. Nena. Okay. If Nena is not ready, we can take Vint. And when she's ready, I'm sure I'll see that on the screen. Vint, please.
I just wanted to respond to Khaled's question. Of course, the IGF can't possibly solve all problems. And so my recommendation in response to what should we do is to focus not only on the problems, which we talk a lot about, but also where they could be addressed. So IGF should not necessarily in itself try to solve problems, all of them. Some of it surely can make strong and evidence-based recommendations for. But one of the strongest things we can do is to formulate the problem or the question, and then suggest where that question should be addressed.
Okay, thank you, Vint. Nena, are you ready, or should I go?
Yes, I am. I needed to be unmuted. Thank you, Benga. I want to speak to the questions that were asked. What am I going to tell someone are the reasons we should make the IGF permanent or renew its mandate? I have 7 reasons. The first is that this is one true global multi-stakeholder instance that we have in governance, whether it is internet or otherwise. So I think that is one reason to preserve the multi-stakeholder model. The second is that we have global instances. We have the global, we have the regional, we have the national, we have sub-regional, and I don't know of any other instance so far that we have all of those instances. So I think that is one reason to keep the IGF. The IGF is an instance that does not heavily depend on the UN for its financing. We can. I mean, it's very cheap, by the way, to have these conversations, to have these convenings. So it does not heavily depend on the UN and its finances. I earlier talked about the internet governance schools. The IGF allows us to have education that is capacity building packaged into it. So I believe it's a holistic governance capacity building package that is built into the IGF. There is also the cost of changing what we have now. We don't have any other thing, it is true, but what is the cost of abandoning it to seek for something else? I think that that cost is way more. And finally, I think that the IGF, because of the instances that we have, because of its nature, because of what it already gives us, is a great place to serve the GDC, which is what we're working on now. So I believe that as a vehicle, as an implementation vehicle, as a broad way, and as a leeway, as an avenue for the GDC, the IGF, it's a great place.
Thank you.
Please, one thing, emerging technologies. 10 years ago, we used the word emerging technologies generally. But now I think that in the past few years, the AI has come into force. There will be more in the future. And I think that the IGF space is a good place for us to have conversations on emerging technologies. My name is Nena. I come from the internet, and I think this will be my last intervention for the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nena.
I will speak in French. Can I?
Proceed, please.
Go ahead. My name is Cosine Amesan. I come from Benin, from the Ministry of Economy and Finance. We had a great session, but I would like to ask about the repercussions. We, in 2003 and 2005, put with the Society of Information and Technology new measures. Why don't we change the paradigm to become an entity of observation and allow each stakeholder from this private sector to actually take part? Each can actually participate and bring his expertise, progress, and say whether this is doable or not. Why do we, how about internet belonging to everyone? And what do you think about this new idea that I brought?
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Israel Rosas from the Internet Society. First of all, I also want to thank you for organizing this session in this format. I think it's part of the value of the IGF. One of the contentious topics is whether the IGF provides tangible outcomes. And I think that this community should think about how to increase the visibility of the partnerships that the NRIs are promoting and using at the national and regional level, because that's where the multi-stakeholder model translates into tangible, concrete outcomes that benefit people, where all stakeholders can participate and create concrete solutions in benefit of people. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take, we have 2 comments online, and I see, we'll close the queue now because of time, and we have 4 people. So let's have 2 more comments in the room. We'll take 2 comments online, and we'll come back to the 2 last comments in the room. And at this point, if you could help me spend a minute, I'll get to everyone, I promise. If you spend a minute, I'll get to everyone.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. My name is Annalise Williams. I'm part of the technical community, and I'm very involved in Australia's national IGF. I moderated a session yesterday on evolving the IGF that generated many ideas that will be put forward in the session report, but just briefly, they included closer engagement with the NRIs and incorporating national and regional discussions into the program of the global IGF in a more coordinated way, and perhaps looking back some sort of compendium over the 19 years of the IGF and its achievements and outcomes and the things that have been discussed here. In response to the question about what we would say to decision makers, the DNS Research Federation report on the IGF's achievements said if the IGF didn't exist, we'd have to create it. But the IGF does exist, it's very valuable. I think it should continue and its mandate should be permanent. And I think we can perhaps think about how we how the IGF works in accordance with its TUNIS, the mandate in its TUNIS agenda in relation to identifying emergent issues and bringing them to the attention of relevant bodies and the general public, and where appropriate, making recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next comment from the room.
Thank you very much. I will try to spend a minute. My name is Ntati Morosi. I am the Minister of ICT, Science and Innovation from Lesotho. I've been sitting here, this is the first time I attend IGF, and I must say it's a very good forum because it brings everyone to the table. But I've been really bugged by the objective of IGF regarding leaving no one behind, regarding inclusivity, and looking at the challenges that I shared when I was at the panel about some of the challenges that we have in Africa regarding inclusivity, especially the price of the gadgets, the price of the data. As governments, we've done a lot to connect people with the infrastructure, but a lot of people are not connected to internet because of the gadgets. I think it's about time we ask IGF to have a special forum with the private sector to come up with solutions for us regarding some of these special challenges. And maybe the IGF to track all the countries to see how we are doing from time to time in the objective of bringing everyone and inclusivity and leaving no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have Anup and one other and online. Can we take those two comments?
Hey, thank you for the opportunity to let me speak. So I would just like to stand with my views that I stand in solidarity with IGF to continue from a personal perspective. Further room should be made for the innovations and inclusions and widely reaching to righteous societies, even like the social societies and civil societies and people of the world for better governance forum and interaction. So I believe that IGF has the whole potential to reach to the grassroots levels. Even I was attending the cybersecurity meeting today, and there also we spoke about that how IGF can reach up to the marginalized society and help the unlearned people to learn about the perspective of internet governance forums. And thus, I would also like to say governance and system rethinking is crucial with evolving nature of technology. And thus, I also discovered the Digital Peace Day, which I would like to celebrate with IGF further. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have one other participant online who, please go ahead, unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, thank you very much, Consulate. Yeah, thank you very much, Benga. Consulate here speaking for the record. I just want to say that when we look at the role the IGF has played in terms of the national and regional initiatives, we'll discover that even though it's not a decision-making body, it has accelerated policy development and implementations, especially in the global south, especially in terms of bridging the digital divide. And that is a key aspect I think the IGF should continue. When we look at the recent soft pact for the future document, you will discover that Action 27, Part 2 in emerging technologies fits into this purpose, and the IGF can play a role. The whole of Section 3 of that soft pact of the future document is another initiative, is another aspect at national and regional levels that the IGF can help to make a difference. And we can only look well at policy implementations through our various digital economy ministries to see the effect what the IGF has done. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much, Ponslate. We've got two last comments in the room, please. Proceed.
Hello, I'm Artem Garenov from Kyrgyzstan, Central Asian IGF. So a couple of thoughts. One is about names. Like within IGF, we discuss many topics that are far beyond from like internet itself, and probably the name like Digital Governance Forum would be more appropriate. That's about the names, okay. Another thing that's, so I'm personally tired of words like ensure and recommend, and I would go for some like implement. And on a NRI level, we feel some lack of the capabilities of current mandate of IGF, and we need some institutionalization of NRI, of course, and I would be glad if this will be accounted in the discussion of the current mandate of IGF. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final comment for this session.
Thank you so much. I'm Ahmed Farag, Chair of the North African IGF, and allow me to make my intervention in Arabic.
The NRIs, as well as the youth forums on internet governance over the past years in an excellent manner as much as was possible, and they are continuously evolving. And we are at the North Africa internet governance seek to seek more coordination between the various parties, specifically youth and women. And we were keen during the last session on inviting the physically challenged as well. We have communicated with the national entities relevant in that regard in order to ensure their participation in the forum and the training course that took place in Mauritania last month. My question, as we are addressing the future of the internet governance and in light of the limited budgets, are there any future plans to support the work of these forums in the international forums?
Thank you so much. I'm sure if we did a word map of this session, one huge one will be NRIs, and I think that is really critical. Let me give our panelists the chance in 2 minutes each to give us what would be your last word and ask a recommendation or a best practice that you see in these conversations that we've had. Let me start with you, Timia, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Benga. I'll try to be brief in how to respond to a very large question and to the very rich discussion that we've had today. And I want to go to the comment that Mary raised, our friend from Nigeria, about how multi-stakeholder and multilateral need to shake hands. I don't think they only need to shake hands. They need to hold hands. And go along the road together. It's not an either or, and I think it's about time that we've realized that. We don't need to be married to words. It's not something that we say this word or the other, and we've solved the issue. We do need to think about implementation, and I think the implementation is bringing these two ideas into one governance conversation where we truly have everybody at the table and make recommendations together that resonate with the local realities. And that can only happen if we have governments, businesses, civil society, the technical community, academics, all around the table that bring their own perspectives. It's not about everybody having a vote or everybody negotiating an outcome, but everybody having a voice, and for that voice to actually be heard and having a dialogue. And that is what I mean by multi-stakeholder and multilateral needing to hold hands as we move along the WSIS road together.
I like the picture I'm seeing there. They shouldn't just shake hands. We need to hold hands and maybe take a walk. Valeria.
Yes, I cannot agree more with Timea. And I could say that the IGF has to also strengthen its capacity to not only produce messages, but to communicate those messages to the relevant policy-making spaces. I think that's essential. Having the messages obviously is necessary, but the IGF has to strategically identify the different spaces and processes and forums where to take those messages and shape and help shaping the decisions. For instance, around what is being decided at the moment around artificial intelligence governance or data governance, and this should also include the national level processes. So in that sense, I think the ability to also communicate and connect with governments is something that has to be strengthened. In other words, interfacing with the governments, interfacing with decision-making spaces, intergovernmental processes is key, and the IGF should continue to evolve in that direction.
Thank you so much. Cordis?
With the risk of taking the analogy slightly too far, but I don't think they just need to hold hands. I think they need to dance together, because they are very much linked and intertwined. Because the IGF is uniquely positioned within the WSIS framework and the UN and the UN ecosystem. And I don't think there's a going back on that, right? Even if the format. And I think it's one of the few spaces, again, where all the stakeholders can really come together and they can tackle complexities of internet governance. But as I said in my intervention, to fulfill this potential, it also needs to adapt, right? We need to evolve it. It needs to, as we heard from the speakers, really focus on outputs that we can translate into actions. And it has to be a platform that's truly inclusive. We need to expand on this. And the process has to be flexible enough to address the challenges that's coming. Again, the space isn't static. We're not back to 19 years ago.
Thank you so much. Christine.
Thank you. I think I want to echo what the Minister of Lesotho said, because I know we've had at the IGF for years and years so many discussions about meaningful access, about connecting the next billions, and the points that were raised by Her Excellency the Minister are points that were really mentioned in all those discussions in that dialogue. So to echo what every second person in the session has been saying, it's about having more actions, having more recommendations, having linkages to governments. I think we just need to move with the IGF to the next phase. We need to figure out how we can use the potential that the IGF has, and actually in its current mandate, even to deliver on tangible outcomes. And we need to innovate to do that, innovate in terms of frameworks, in terms of modalities. And again, the second point that I want to say is about the NRIs. I think there's so much has been said about the NRIs in this session. We need to capture that and move towards implementing it. And I will bring an example from my region, the Arab region. We just had a collaborative session of different national and regional and sub-regional IGFs just a few weeks ago. And one of the recommendations that came out of that session was that our collective NRI experience should inspire decision-making and multilateral and intergovernmental processes within the region. I think we should encourage that in various regions as well and move on the global level to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Vint, you're literally next to Christine on the big screen in this main room. So your closing thoughts.
Oh my. Well, let me just be very brief and say that in this session and in the other sessions that I've attended, I reached the conclusion that IGF should become a permanent operation within the UN context, and that we should work towards that outcome as we prepare for the IGF meeting in Norway and the subsequent WSIS plus 20. I think Bertrand makes the good point that we should consider moving in that direction by laying out what issues we should be addressing and how we should address them. Keep in mind that the IGF and the NRIs are not the only place where solutions might be found. So let's be expansive as we think about problem formulation. Let's think about where those problems could best be addressed. This has been a very stimulating session. I took a lot of notes, and I'm looking forward to the closing session coming up later today.
Thank you, Vint. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Cortez. Thank you, Valeria. Thank you, Timia. And of course, thank you, Carol. I guess this literally brings us to the end of this session, but I see your mic, so
Yes.
something is coming.
Sorry, so I'm going to take 15 seconds. I think as Mike Chair, this is my takeaway and something that we will bring to the Secretariat, the strengthening of partnerships with other UN agencies, strengthening of partnerships with private sector and business community, and the handshakes and the hand-holding. We need more of that. We've started with the Interparliamentary Union. I think there's also something similar with the Diplomatic Corps or state missions. So I think we probably could extend that. And we must improve engagement and outreach with the underserved. Thank you. Thank you to the organizers for this fantastic session.
And thank you to everyone who took the mic and to everyone in the room. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.